Video 3.6 Azure Logic Apps. In this video, we will cover the following topics: overview of Azure Logic Apps, workflow, trigger, and action, how Logic Apps work, and why use Azure Logic Apps. Azure Logic Apps is a cloud service that helps create and run automated workflows that integrate your data, apps, systems, and services. Azure Logic Apps is an integration platform as a service offered by Microsoft with built-in scalability. Azure Logic Apps can scale up automatically to fulfill requirements and manage demands. With this cloud-based platform, one can easily develop highly scalable integration solutions. The Azure Logic App provides a Logic App Designer to visualize, design, and configure the workflow. Logic Apps exposed a range of APIs as connectors, using which an automated workflow can be designed. A question might arise in an inquisitive person's mind. What can we automate using this Logic Apps service of Microsoft Azure? Here we will discuss some scenarios where Azure Logic App can be used to automate workflow. First, schedule and send email or text message notifications. Second, route and move data to Azure storage services. Third, set alerts at specific conditions or triggers. And fourth, boost productivity with automated workflow without writing code. Now that we've got a rough idea about Azure Logic Apps, let us discuss some of the key components of Logic Apps. Workflows. A workflow in an Azure Logic Apps is a series of steps that defines a complete task. Each workflow will start with a trigger, after which you must add one or more actions. Using Azure Logic Apps, a workflow can be designed that may automate a business process. Trigger. The first step while designing a workflow for Azure Logic Apps is trigger. Triggers specify the condition for running any further steps in that workflow. An Azure Logic Apps workflow may have multiple triggers as well. A trigger can be any condition or a scheduled time depending upon the user's need to create a workflow. Action. Once the trigger is fired in Azure Logic Apps, action or group of actions takes place depending upon the workflow. Action is a step that comes after a trigger in a workflow. Actions perform the designated tasks based on the data provided by the user. Azure Logic Apps provide an extensive list of actions available in the connector repository. Users can select the desired action as per requirement and add subsequent triggers in a workflow. After getting familiar with the key components of the Azure Logic Apps, let us discuss how the Logic Apps work. A workflow will start with a trigger followed by an action or set of actions in Azure Logic Apps. A trigger fires when the condition is met, and a series of actions gets executed. Let us understand the working of Azure Logic Apps by taking an example of a smart bulb in the yard. When the sun sets, the yard starts getting darker. As per the weather, you know when the sun sets daily. So daily, you want your smart light bulb to lighten automatically when the sun sets at a particular time. For this purpose, a Logic Apps workflow can be designed. Here, the trigger will be a preset time, for example 6 p.m. in the evening, and the action is switch on the bulb. The Azure Logic Apps provides built-in API connectors and facilitates customized connectors to integrate data, apps, systems, and services quickly and easily. Logic Apps are the best way to design and implement business logic and functionality without writing code. The Azure Logic App is fully managed by Microsoft, which means users need not worry about hosting, managing, scaling, monitoring, and maintaining solutions built using this service. Some IoT companies like Onvation and RXR Realty use Azure Logic Apps service along with various Azure IoT services. This brings us to the end of this video. We will learn how to design a Logic App workflow to get alerts further in this course. Video summary. In this video, we have covered the following topics: overview of Azure Logic Apps, workflow, trigger, and action, how Logic Apps work, and finally, why we use Azure Logic Apps. In the next video, we will learn about Azure Time Series insights.